However, what people have been saying about him is he killed grannies and grabbed fannies.
The Trump, the Trump Epstein statue outside the Capitol is was so good when that happened.
The sticker price on it was like 300 million, which is a lot. Like that's a lot, but it's not like a billion
Like
where
after 3 years, 3 more years of this, if it keeps going how it's going, the pendulum will swing back. Like
that
I like the call out of like a dictatorship or like fascism tendencies from time.
tendency. This is what America, I think, is supposed to feel like. Hello, everyone. We are here for episode 29 of Washed Up. I'm Colin. This is Abby. We're in Washington, D.C., bringing you the weekly news so you don't have to listen to the legacy media that your grandparents do.
Enjoy the view now because I fear this is our last, probably, what is this, our third and last for the season at least, outside episode. Um, there's our little Washington Monument. It's getting a little chillier out. So I think this is the last time we're gonna be out here.
Yeah, as you can see, we both have several layers on, and it's definitely getting frigid. And come November, it'll be downright cold. So we're taking it in, enjoying it while we can. We actually got to go to Annapolis, where I'm from, like last weekend.
Oh yeah, that was last
The
weekend.
days are flying by, but we got to go to Annapolis, and it was like pretty beautiful weather for October. Leaves are changing, everything is very pretty right now.
In general, I think that the daytime, the weather's not too bad. It's just the nighttime, it gets kind of chilly out, but it is definitely gonna get colder and colder, especially with Halloween coming up and November and December. I have been saying that this is my first real fall, and I'm about to, I guess, experience my first real winter as well, which I'm actually not very excited for.
Yeah, no, it could be rough in the East Coast for winter, and you being from Vegas, probably only get down to like 40 and
Yeah,
whatnot. But
that's our cold.
I think last year it was 8 degrees
Yeah.
for a lot of January. Actually, funny story. I went to go see Jimmy Carter when he died. His body was laying in state in the Capitol, and my friends from work and I stood outside for 3 hours in a row, and it said feels like 8 degrees. That was probably the low point of the entire winter. So hopefully this winter will not be like that.
I really hope not. I was talking to somebody about about it, and she's from New York, and she was like, "Yeah, everyone here is super dramatic about how cold it gets." And I'm like, "Okay, well, it gets a lot colder there, I guess." Um, but yeah, speaking of New York, you just went.
Yeah, I actually this past week just went up to New York and came back to DC like same day, very quick turnaround. And so I thought I could just give a little bit of insight into that, what it was like, the contrast between the two different cities. Because to be frank, Abby and I have had very long weeks and we've not really prepared too much in the way of the latest news. But there actually is huge news out of New York right now, which is the mayoral election coming up. And obviously, the two big candidates right now competing are Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo. And there's Curtis Sewell who's in there too. He's Republican, but he's kind of sort of at this point a little bit of an afterthought. Have you been watching any of the debates or seen any of the ways that the different candidates have been characterized, interacted with each other?
I saw the I lightly have looked at a couple of the debates. I read a couple articles about it. I've seen comments on like what each of them believe in. And also, I've been following more recently, like these influencers who are trying to like get more young people to vote in New York, which I actually very much respect. They're just genuinely just like regular influencer fashion people, but they were just like freely talking about voting, which I feel like I only see from celebrities during presidential elections. And that honestly did make me look at it and I was like, wait, I should look into this more. I saw some comments about some racial slurs thrown around. I've seen some things about negative things about Mamdani's background in being Muslim. That wasn't too nice. What are the things that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I've seen that as well because I believe he was born in Uganda
Hmm.
and I think his background is in Islam and I think he's from India, but they moved to Uganda. He was born in Uganda. I listened to the Andrew Schultz podcast, just to kind of get some insight into like how does Mamdani come across in like a regular conversation setting. And he seemed very like buttoned up in, I mean, kind of what you'd expect from a politician, but he's very young. So people like that about him because he can bring like a new perspective versus I think Andrew Cuomo very much represents like the old, literally, I mean, it's like literally a different generation, but also like he's been in New York politics for so long. He's former governor, has a ton of like political baggage. What do you know about Andrew Cuomo's baggage that he brings to the table? Because it has come up during this election, although in my opinion, not nearly enough.
I am I think it's funny because I was talking about it with some other people who didn't even know there was like an election going on in New York, which here I guess it's like less common, but even people living in New York, I think the two of us were talking about it and we're like, "Oh wow, like I feel like people in DC have been like caring a little bit more about it than people in New York." And I'm like wondering if I'm just in this like DC bubble of being like, is this really all we talk about? Which I guess we'll get into later as well. But I think I agree with you. I I think not enough people are concerned about it. I also think with the news and media legacy, sometimes it's really legacy media, I mean, it's really hard to find certain information. Like you have to be intentionally looking for things most times in this day and age. Like I will look things up and have to scroll and scroll and be like, okay, well, this is what CNN says, this is what the Post says, this is what this says. Like, where is the underlying truth in everything?
Yeah, no, it's super hard. And like from that standpoint, it's easy to understand why people might not be like super invested in the outcome of this election. But I do think it's very consequential because of what it represents, because of how different those two candidates are and what their vision is for the city of New York. And as far as the political baggage of Cuomo, the two big scandals that plagued his governorship of New York was the COVID stuff where he allegedly put sick COVID elderly patients back into nursing homes, which caused like spreading in the nursing homes, and some people will say led to higher death rates in those nursing homes. And then his other big one was he was accused of alleged misconduct when it comes to how he would treat like women in his office.
hmm
I believe there was some physical allegations. I don't remember the full extent of them. However, what people have been saying about him is he killed grannies and grabbed fannies, and that's why he can't
So
be the mayor.
freaking, that's so freaking good.
It is, it's great. But
That is
like
an awesome headline.
yes. Yeah, New York Post, where are you with that one? You should feel free to take that. I think I heard that on Andrew Schultz's podcast, where they were like really trying to have a good time with Mamdani and get him to like loosen up and be fun, which he seemed to have that side to him, so I could appreciate Mamdani.
I think I also give Mamdani a little bit of grace in that, like you said, he's like newer, he's younger, he's like getting into it. And I honestly really think that that's kind of the point of ideally what elections should be, free and open elections as like a foundation of democracy. It doesn't like always happen, obviously, because there are certain paths people have to take, a lot of like legacy families, a lot of people like basically born to take certain roles.
Which Cuomo was. His dad
Yeah.
was the mayor of New York too, so
So I really do respect when a new candidate arises and has the support that he does. I feel like I was looking at the polls earlier this morning on my way to work, and I saw that it's still pretty close.
it seems like Mamdani's pulled ahead, but he has been kind of relentlessly attacked in the media. Like you said, people using like his background as a means to attack him. The New York Post went after him really hard because he took a photo with an imam who had this past when he had defended in court one of the bombers of the World
hmm
Trade Center. So the New York Post is like going crazy with that. I mean,
Yeah.
they've branded him a bunch of different stuff.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that too. And um they're asking like what he would do if like 9/11 happened today, or something like
I
that.
think even JD Vance weighed in because Mamdani at a press conference was talking about how it was hard for Muslims in the city after 9/11 because they would get like, looked at differently or like skeptically. And JD Vance was saying like, oh, Mamdani is trying to say that the worst part about 9/11 was like his aunt who he had referred to being profiled. And I think these are kind of low blows from like again the sitting vice president. Why does he care in that instance to enough to like comment.
Hmm.
Seems like he's stooping to lay some low blows.
Yeah, for no reason. I mean, like, obviously, I think all of our politicians are greater politicians too, in the sense of like the bigger scheme of things, should be should know what's going on in their country, especially in a city as big as New York. But like you said, I do think those were low blows, and it's almost like he's commenting them just to comment on them and like ignite fire in people.
Mhm. Yeah, so all of that is certainly in the going on in this race right now. And when I was in New York, I surprisingly, as you kind of alluded, I didn't really see many like political posters up. It didn't seem like it was really like the topic of conversation, as I know politics obviously can be in DC. So I was a bit surprised in that regard. Again, because of how I think this will be a consequential election. Some people have referred to if Mamdani wins, it'll sort of be like an experiment, how his policies are going to, translate into results and whether his economics are going to pay off in the way that he thinks that it will. Because he's very pro, like, well, subsidizing like transportation costs, even implementing like price controls, rent controls, essentially like using the government to bring prices down, which some people are critical is socialist, or some people will say like it's going to have the reverse effect and drive prices up.
What do you think about that? If you were in New York, who are you voting for?
Oh God,
Not to put you on
that's
the
really.
spot.
I would probably vote for Silva just for like the heck of it. I've been known to vote for a underdog who had no chance, so I'd probably vote for Silva. But um, yeah, it's hard because the Republicans in New York are going to have to decide like which is the lesser of two evils, you could say. Um,
In their eyes.
in their eyes, yeah. Like do they want Mamdani, who is going to be more of a socialist-ish progressive, or do they want like the old guard who has like all of this uh backstory that is very damaging and potentially negative. I don't know. I think that Mamdani is gonna win ultimately,
I hope he does.
and so I was at an event in New York. That's why I was there, and there was a columnist from the New York Post there who was saying that essentially she was like okay with the idea, even though she didn't like Mamdani, but she was saying like I'm kind of interested to see if we're gonna be like the experiment, like what actually happens. Because if he fails catastrophically and his
It's gonna be
economic
bad.
don't work and it does drive the prices up and the crime up and the like all of these indicators go in the wrong direction, then people will realize like, oh, it actually was a mistake to vote in someone of that background or that ilk, socialist left.
It's interesting for a city like New York to be that experiment too. It's honestly like the perfect storm.
But I think New York has always kind of been that. And
True.
that's what I like about it. Like, so when I was there, it was really great because I got to like kind of do all the New York stuff and
Were
actually
you like pretending to be a New Yorker for a little bit? Were you like, oh, can I imagine myself here?
it
Or
felt
was DC calling your name back?
no.
You're
It
like,
felt
God,
like a
no.
nice reprieve from DC because as listeners of the show will know, I feel like it's just been like nonstop since Trump got back in office. Like DC, something's always going on in DC. All the news just feels like it's coming out of DC lately. So it felt like honestly a reprieve to be in New York, like a little vacation. Even though it's known to be very hectic and chaotic and loud, which it was. But like I got to see some friends, got to go to an event, got to go to the Statue of Liberty, which was really cool.
Oh, you went to the Statue of Liberty?
Mhm.
Like inside? Or did you see it from like a ferry
I went to the
on the
island.
island?
Yeah, so I went to the like little Liberty Island and got to walk around. And so then we went to Ellis Island. I got to go and do some ancestry research, and it was really cool. And then I had a moment where we were taking the ferry back to Battery Park, and I was sitting in the very back looking out, at the Statue of Liberty, and there was like the American flag waving everywhere. And I was like, this is what America, I think, is supposed to feel like. Like this feels like my ancestors went through and through Ellis Island, a couple of them, and I felt like very connected to it in that way. Like this was like the gateway that they took to America to come here, and now we've been here for like 100+ years in some lines that I'm descendant from. And it just felt like this very expansive, open, welcoming, exciting place. And lately, I would say DC has not felt that way. It's felt more like oppressive, a little bit like, I don't know, again, chaotic and not in the good way, just in the kind of confusing, overwhelming way. And I'm sure that New York is like that in its own right. But
Yeah, like it's easy to kind of look at something that you're not a part of, not saying that like we're not a part of America, but like as in we don't live in New York, we don't live in these places, and to like go there and quote like escape your regular life for a little bit and be
it's like
like
one day, so I can't. I'm being very dramatic.
and like look at it and be like, wow. I even felt that way like in Annapolis. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I could so see myself like living in this little like me, you, and our other friend who we went with. We were like kind of like daydream-esque, being like, wow, like we could live here and then commute to the city and only go to the city when we want to, and then there's schools nearby and it's so safe over here and like all this stuff and like
Yeah.
we even like saw people speaking of like things going on in like DC and oppressiveness. We saw people from No King's Day
Uh-huh.
there to like I'm sh surely like commuting into the city, but even around like that area when we were getting closer and closer to Nablus because we drove, we like saw them on the bridge and
Hmm.
um from the metro and moments like that, like I think were are very uniting in DC as a whole. I think you're right in that sometimes it could feel very like things are happening all the time to the point where people aren't even like blinking an eye anymore. Like when it comes to a lot of a lot of what the Trump administration is doing. Um, so sometimes it's nice to remember that like people have each other in that way. Like people are doing things and being funny or being really ambitious in like the way that they want to speak up for themselves, whether it's through like art or through free speech or through whatever form of peaceful protest there may be. It kind of reminded me of what Kamala Harris said at her book tour, being like,
Hmm.
we need like young people to enact through stories and art and like narrative.
Yeah, narrative is certainly a very unifying thing, and I think my critique of DC is that sometimes it feels like the people here are unified against something, and I would rather have an experience where like we're united for something.
Hmm.
And I think that was maybe a part of the contrast I noted between DC, where it's like you're united in opposition toward the Trump administration or toward the other party, and it can feel very like it's just you and your team against the world, and that can be invigorating and exciting in its own way, but it can also be exhausting. And I guess in New York, there was sort of this camaraderie about like, we're all here. I happened to be there for that day, but like, it felt like everyone's here. Everyone's like showing up because like there's something there for you. And there was even like in the graffiti, people would write like remember what it took to get here and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, like
You're like, hell yeah, I'm remembering.
it felt like there was like a spirit that people were united in, for like a positive one. And I don't know, in DC I haven't felt that lately, though I have felt it in the past and I probably will again. So not to knock DC too much. We actually have been talking about how great some of the forms of protest have been here.
Hmm.
So do you want to go through that list?
Yeah, Colin actually made a little list and sent it to me, but I was thinking about it too. I'm really glad that you sent that to me and like brought it up because I think there are wonderful forms of protest that people in DC do. Um, through like you see it all the time on the streets, like through stickers and art and like fun things and puns. People are so freaking creative
Mhm.
and it's everywhere. And I think sometimes people around the country, especially people who haven't been to DC or aren't from the East Coast even, like have the wrong idea of DC. They're like, oh my gosh, now that Trump is there, it's a bunch of Trump MAGA people, all this ruling the country or whatever. At least I think that's from like the most uninformed, like West Coast idea. Not to put that on West Coasters, but like I guess it's just talking with people who I know and like family and like whatnot, and that idea that DC is this very stoic businessy place, but I think it also has like a lot of culture and art and creativity and unity when you search for it.
Oh, definitely. And I think that that opportunity exists anywhere you go.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's not,
In a city too.
yeah, especially in a city. And so I think like you can find that spirit anywhere. Some examples from DC that have stuck out recently though.
The Trump the Trump Epstein statue outside the Capitol is was so good when that happened.
I'll send you a picture you can splice in, but
Yeah.
it's basically there's a statue of Trump and Epstein outside the U.S. Capitol, like holding hands, and they had it removed for a while because they didn't have the right permit, but then they brought it back, and like it was even more exciting when it came back, and people would like line up, take a picture with it of it, and even the National Guard. Ran past it one day, and the National Guard was out there like talking with everyone, taking pictures. It was hilarious. And just a reminder of like, hey, the Epstein files still out there, yet to be seen. Another one outside Congress was they had the word democracy, but it was spelled in ice. So it
hmm
started to like melt as the day went on. I don't know. Kind of an
I thought
interesting.
that's that was a really interesting think piece too. Like I think it was super creative. A lot has been happening. I don't know if you've seen it, but at least around where I've been working and people I've been talking to, there's been a lot of deportations recently and ICE officers looking around places that I w wouldn't be expecting. Maybe I've just been tuned into it more, or maybe it's always been happening and I just now know people who know people. But that's been really something that's been weighing on me recently too.
Yeah, I haven't seen nearly as much of that, but I believe it. I mean, you hear about it a lot on, especially on the news, and I was praising New York earlier, but they just had a big, massive ice raid that one
hmm
of our friends who used to work at the paper with us was telling me about because she lived there and I got to see her in New York and she was telling me like, hey, just the other day, like ice rounded up a ton of people and it was, like it's a big deal and it's happening all over the country. Um, and yeah, I haven't witnessed it firsthand, but I agree. A lot of people are on edge no matter where you are. Um, yeah, it's been really rough in that regard.
hmm
But some other forms of protests that we've seen, which are kind of inspiring. I think the idea that like grand juries haven't been indicting people is interesting because that's another form of sort of resistance where like the government is trying to bring someone up on charges and the residents of DC are saying like, no, we don't think that that amounts to uh it doesn't warrant charges. We'll let them go. And like we saw that with the sandwich guy.
Sandwich guy. I think we talked about the sandwich
We
guy.
did, yeah.
Everyone's freaking talked about the sandwich guy.
We
Like
should try to interview him or something.
that would be really
I
a
think
great
I
idea.
think I saw he worked at the DOJ and then he got fired because of throwing the sandwich and all of that nonsense. So maybe we can get him on the pod.
You know what would be a crazy good marketing tactic is if one of like the DC sandwich spots like named a sandwich after him or something like that. Like if like I like this is obviously not sponsored at all because like we like don't have any subscribers. Besides the
Hey,
32 of you.
33.
33 of you. Sorry, my bad. But like if compliments only or something, like the sandwich shop in DC like did that or like any other like DC only sandwich spot would be such a good idea. I should like tell them. I'm gonna tell them that they should do that.
Yeah. So that was a funny one. Another one similar but different. There was a guy following the National Guard around, and he was playing
The
the
Darth
Darth
Vader
Vader.
music. These are like the harmless like bits, pranks, funny things that I think are so important to us as humans in
Yeah.
terms of like quote forms of protest because it's so harmless, but it's still getting the point across in like the silliest, most fun way that gets people talking and gets the people who are implementing things angry and they can't even do anything about it.
Well, it's sort of like giving back to Trump and people in MAGA what they often are doing, which is like trolling.
Yeah.
They're doing the
I love a good
absurd.
troll back.
Yeah, it's sort of like you kind of have to, because there's no, when someone's being absurd, you can't, like meet them with reason and expect to get anywhere because they're doing it to get a reaction out of you. So if you can like not bring it down to even more absurd level, but like meet them where they are, maybe. I think that's maybe one of the only effective ways. But the Darth Vader guy, I heard that he got arrested.
What? He
hmm
did?
I heard that he got arrested and then he is suing because he's saying like it's a violation of free speech, I guess, or right to assemble, protest, First Amendment stuff. So I'm gonna follow that story, but I did hear,
I'm so sure that so many people in DC would rally behind the Darth Vader guy.
I would hope, yeah.
I would rally behind it.
There's a lot of law firms out there right now who specialize in like First Amendment cases who I would imagine would rally behind him because a lot of those law firms that have like gone against the government head to head are getting jerked around themselves by the administration. So hopefully justice for Darth Vader guy and justice for Sandwich Guy too.
Justice for Sandwich Guy as hell. Like, yeah. Yes. What's your favorite sticker and or piece of art that you've seen around DC?
Oh God, there's a lot of them, and
There's so
people
many.
send them to me too. So not just in DC, but people like my aunt was in at the Chicago No Kings protest, and she sent me a ton of the signs that they had. A lot of them are really funny. Um, this one made me laugh, even though I kind of disagreed with the premise of it.
We'll put it right
They said, first they came for Ukraine, and I spoke out immediately, even though I'm not in Ukraine, because I read the rest of the effing poem. And he's referring to that poem, which I've read on this show before,
here. Right.
by Niemöller,
Hmm.
who was, saying like first they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out, and they came for da 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 trade union people, didn't speak out. And so I thought that was funny because it's like taking that very well-known poem, which a lot of people are bringing into the fold right now, and sort of inverting your expectation of it. And I think a lot of good protest and good humor does that. It takes the expected and it flips it on its head,
Hmm.
which is what Trump is good at. And what,
I think that's really creative too.
yeah. So that one kind of made me laugh. Some of them were pretty incendiary, and
Lots of
certainly,
things about fascism.
yeah. Someone said you put the dick in dictator. Nice.
And
Um, but some of the signs also at No Kings went a little far and crossed a line, if you ask me. Like there were some that were saying like cholesterol do its job,
oh,
which is, like it's kind of crossing a line. Uh,
I don't know if like there's some signs where I'm like, oh, like that's a good ass sign, like that's creative, that's this, like that is getting the point across. But some signs are just like, which I understand why people are being like angry and doing like, but I think that you could do like so many better signs. Like you could stand for things that are so much better and like it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier of not just being united against something, but being united for something.
yeah, yeah, I think that
Like
that
I like the call out of like a dictatorship or like fascism tendencies from time.
tendencies.
let me let me make sure I don't get sued. It's giving the Vista when we would be editing and be like, oh well, what if we put allegedly there?
Allegedly, in my opinion.
In my opinion.
Yeah, so it's great to see the creativity. I think overall inspiring. Sounds like a lot of the No Kings protests were peaceful and again, using absurdity as a weapon in the best way, not actual violence, which we are very against on this show. And we think that all of these creative forms of resistance are what we should be doing and not harming anyone.
And whoever is saying that the No King's Day was like super violent, because I have seen a few people saying that who are like pro Trump. I am like, where are you getting that from? Like everything I've seen has been honestly, it looked like a fun party. Like people were like dancing and playing music and protesting with their signs and things like that. And I think it's hard to misconstrue something like that, but sometimes people are like, ah, noise, violence.
I'll say so my two last things about No Kings. Some people were definitely making a mockery out of Charlie Kirk's death, which I think is not okay for the same reasons as I think it like condones violence in a way. And, we talked about after Charlie Kirk died on that whole episode, how in any setting that's really not appropriate. And also how people are probably going to be like imitating that for Halloween, and that's just kind of another level of like potential um, mockery, and it again, don't condone that in any way. But then second thing about the demographics of people at No Kings, people were very much saying like it was a white liberal elderly person
Which
demonstration.
I kind of disagree with. I disagree with. I don't know why I said kind of. At least from what I've seen, there were from what I saw, there was a large like array of demographic, I think.
Hmm.
I saw them like at the metro, like on the street, people posting about it. And I even would say like the age range too was a pretty large spectrum.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of culture in
some of our
DC, like a
friends
lot of
probably
people.
went. I
Yeah.
saw a handful of like people on Instagram who are our age that were posting. One of them, she's so funny. One of them like wore like a clown wig and makeup and like just again like making it absurd but in the best way. Yeah, my other friend in LA went. My aunt in Chicago went. So there's certainly like groups of pockets of people out there. It's not just like one demographic. And okay, so last form of resistance that is really creative that will tie into our next story, the new ballroom that Trump is
Oh yeah, you're
constructing.
right.
And some people are trolling him by calling it the Epstein ballroom. But what have you seen about how that construction process has been going?
I like personally seen nothing because like I haven't has it even like been starting the construction or anything?
Yeah,
Has it been bothering any type of commute that you do?
well,
Or do you
no.
run over there?
Yeah, I run past there. I haven't seen anything personally, but allegedly the east wing of the White House is now demolished.
Which
And
I'm actually having friends visit who you know this weekend, and I think one of them really wanted to see the White House. So I guess I'll see this weekend and report next week what I think about what's going on down there. In general, from what I know about it, I personally do not care that he is deciding to do this ballroom. Like, there has been, there are much greater issues that I care about that Trump does all the freaking time.
like
And
the
I
government is
hate,
still shut down.
yes, the government is still shut down. Like, I hate that like shit like this can make headlines and people care about it so hard and so heavily and like move on from the last. It's almost like he's doing this as like rage bait. Like it feels like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
he's doing it just to make sure that this makes the headlines and that people are going to forget the government shutdown or that people are going to forget that ICE deportations are happening or that literally anything that matters so much more than a stupid ballroom in the White House that like presidents and different admins have made renovations to time and time again. Like, why do people don't actually care? They just want to hate. And I think it is super valid to critique things and hate on things that Trump does, but do it to something that actually matters.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree because people, I've heard people recently saying like, "Oh, it's the people's house. You can't like demolish a wing or you can't do this or that." Okay, first of all, I disagree. I think Congress is the people's house, if anything. That's where like the representative part of our government comes from. Yes, the president's elected, but I don't know, by the electoral Congress, not even directly. But anyway, I don't think the White House is sort of like the symbol of like the people, and never really has been. And as you said, they've done renovations on it before. I believe during the Truman admin, they gutted the entire inside of the building because it was starting to dilapidate. It's a really old building, and it's built
The
in a
Rose
swamp.
Garden.
And it's built in a little swamp, so the whole thing's like always like sinking and collapsing. It's just like a mess. So yeah, they're doing construction on it and they're expanding the East Wing, and it is a very big ballroom that they're constructing. They had to take out like the White House movie theater. The First Lady had some offices in the East Wing, but this new ballroom, even though they're probably gonna name it after Trump, he's gonna make it like a whole thing. It's still
Which is
gonna
annoying.
But like it's still not a terrible idea. It'll allegedly hold like 1,000 plus people. They can host events, dignitaries. It's not like a bad idea. And it's funded through, I've heard, like private donors.
Yeah,
It's
if it was
not.
funded through taxpayers, that's when I'd have something to say about it. I'd be like, no freaking way I'm paying for a ballroom right now.
And I heard the sticker price on it was like 300 million, which is a lot. Like that's a lot, but it's not like a billion.
God.
And that's what like our debt goes up every day by like several billion dollars. So I just don't think like small potatoes people, this is not the end of democracy because of the ballroom. There might be some
There's
other
other
indicators.
ends of democracy to look at. Like,
Yeah.
the ballroom is not a foundation of democracy.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Although one thing that Marianne Williamson had said, Democratic former candidate for president, she was saying like, why would he start constructing a ballroom if he intended to leave at the end of his term? Like it's gonna take longer than that to complete the thing. Maybe is this an indicator that he's gonna run for a third term?
Oh, dear God.
And I have to say, I've heard more and more and more about
I've heard
that.
whisperings about it on the Hill, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Oh, they're whispering out there.
They're actually whisper yelling.
I've even for the first time seen like a document that was on someone posted on X, and it was like sharing like this is how they would do it. They're saying like they'll have Vance or someone else run as president, having Donald Trump as the vice president, and then once that ticket wins, have Trump become the president. And they're saying there's a loophole where like they might be able to do it because yes, we have the 22nd Amendment that says you can only have two terms. However, they might say that the person who's eligible to run for the VP slot, it was under the rules under which that role was specified and what the qualifications were, which was like back in the 1800s before the 22nd Amendment. So they're like, maybe that means like you can have a former president run as VP and then step up. It's
God, can you
craziness.
imagine the chaos? Who
Oh
knows? Who
God.
knows if we'll be here in
I mean,
2028?
would that technically be the end of democracy? I don't know. I don't know.
That would surely be the end of democracy. Stating it
Although I
here.
don't even think he would win. Like I don't think that
I
idea would
think
work.
after 3 years, 3 more years of this, if it keeps going how it's going, the pendulum will swing back.
Yeah.
Like it always happens, like when people are frustrated on one side and then the next, and like there's not enough like it may seem like there's so many people who are loyal to one party, but there are so many people who are swing voters, and that's like where we end up going from like Republican to Democrat or like whatever. Like that's like the point of a republic.
Mm.
Not I don't think the two-party system is the point of a republic. I think that the right to vote for who you want to vote for is, but like the two-party system is just a result of the way that we've done things.
Totally. And I think that we shouldn't like underestimate Americans or the democracy that we have and the fact that I don't think Americans like take very well to having the wool pulled over their eyes, and I don't think Americans are dumb. And so if, Trump or tried to pull something like that, or even just politicians like scheming, I think people can oftentimes see that for what it is. It's like a blatant power grab. And
Hmm.
again, he's like 78,
And will he
79.
live? Would he live for another 4 years?
I,
as
I
president.
mean, people are kind of sick of octogenarians running the government,
Yeah,
hence all of the enthusiasm around Mamdani.
that's a good wrap up.
But do you want to go to our final story of the
Yeah.
day, which is
I think we have a theme of just bouncing around some major cities right now. Um, a really popular story that happened last week, I think, was the heist that happened in the Louvre. Um, in literally broad daylight. I don't know how many photos or anything that you've seen of it, but basically these robbers robbed the Apollo Gallery. And I listened to an interview that the Daily did of like this professional who's like been looking at it. And they were interviewing her and being like, how did this even happen? And she talked about how in Paris there's like a lot of these like crane type machines like everywhere. And it's not atypical to see like these cranes like around the museums. And that's how they did it. They like they like went and snuck the jewels out, like crown jewels out, like through there. And um the crane things that like bring the people down are like super slow. So it took them 7 minutes to escape, basically, quote escape. And everyone's like been saying all these memes, being like, oh my God, that must have been the longest 7 minutes of their lives, like all this stuff. And then they just biked off afterwards. Like they just rode motorcycles and left afterwards.
well,
And there's a few things that I think I want to talk about in this. Like, I think it's crazy that a heist happened in broad daylight in such a, it looks like such a simplistic way. Surely there's some been, people have been talking about how there's investigations into seeing who else has been involved in it. It must have been like more of a group scheme, like not just these like three people in the video or whatever. Which I agree with. Like, there surely had to have been something more planned out. There's no way that security is that loose there. What about you? What have you seen about this?
that's most if not more than I've seen. I I think the jewels that were actually taken, I don't know how much they were valued at, but everyone's saying like priceless, because of historical value and something about I think Napoleon.
Yeah.
It was like his wife's jewelry or
People, the interview that I listened to, the woman who is like the expert on it was talking about how the jewels would actually lessen in worth and value if the crowns were like taken apart and it was like melted off or like
yeah,
sold
yeah.
separately or anything like that, which I believe too.
Well, they're saying like they probably would have to melt it down in order to sell it because it would just be obvious if you like showed up with like a tiara that belonged to Napoleon's wife and you're like, I'm here to put this on eBay.
Yeah,
Then everyone would be like, what the?
there he is, get him.
Yeah. So like they'd have to somehow disassemble, but like you said, that would kind of defeat the value of it, which is that it.
But I'm sure it's still very valuable if you're torn
Oh yeah,
apart.
yeah.
Like,
I also the other thing I saw was there's a picture going around social media of this dude dressed in like Inspector Gadget or like very formal clothes, and they're saying like this is the guy who's gonna crack the case or something. And did you see that?
no.
That's like the only thing I've seen circulating over and over and over. It's like this picture of this guy who is like a detective or something who they brought to the scene, and I don't know. I don't know what his role is at all, but what sort of like detective work have you heard that they're trying to do to find these people?
I've seen a lot of memes and jokes about people being like, there's no investigating going on. No one can, no. And
There's
saying,
more investigation into Brigitte Macron than there is.
true. And people are like, bring back art heist. Like everyone's like, wait, why is this kind of like funny? Like people, I love like the memes going on about it. Like I think it's actually wild that this happened. With Halloween around the corner, I've seen a few people dress up as like the heist people. Like they're wearing like the construction gear and like
Mm,
a little tiara, which I thought was kind of funny. Um, I think it's funny are what stories Gen Z gravitates toward
mm.
and what they make of it. Sometimes I think it's really stupid what stories Gen Z gravitates towards, slash like, or how people think like different things about like what the story is and might say some stupid stuff and joke about things that are like insensitive or whatever, but
Like Luigi Mangione.
yeah, like that's where I was like, ugh, why do we care about this random man who wrote a manifesto that's actually just a paragraph? Um,
But this story is kind of like has an intrigue to it that I think says something about Gen Z and what we value and care about. So from analyzing it from that perspective, I think Gen Z tends to be like less materialistic than our previous generations, and in that sense, the stakes here like are very low.
I agree with that.
Like whether they ever find these people or not, whether they recover the jewels, like Gen Z's
Like
like
Gen Z
we're just here
personally
for
doesn't
it.
care. Like they're just like I've seen a lot of memes about like Lord's song.
Royals.
No, the one where she mentions like the hang us in the loop. I can't sing it
Oh,
right
the
now
Louvre.
because
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, it's called the loop. People have been like making memes about that and being like, do you think they're playing this in their AirPods while they were riding off on their motorcycle?
broadcast the boom, boom, boom. Make them
Yeah.
all dance to it. Yeah. I don't know. I think like maybe it's a bit of a distraction story too. Kind of
Yeah.
like what you're saying about the ballroom, where it's like there's a lot going on in the world that's very serious and feels kind of like dense. But this is more one, kind of like another example, the Coldplay affair.
Yeah.
Whereas like we were in the thick of like the Epstein file situation, like what's in them, who's like what's going on. We're also getting dragged into a war almost, and like then this thing happened at a Coldplay concert, and everyone could like point and laugh, and make like commentary about it and make memes, and it was like this release of the tension of all of the really harsh news. So this Louvre story feels like that to me in a way, where like people are talking about it in the office as like a funny,
Like people were talking about it as a conversation starter and not
yeah,
as like a debate, basically.
yeah, which is healthy, I think.
Me too. I love a good soft reaction news story. I like and what makes me think that that's like a reaction news story that like Gen Z's bonding over is I think about it and I'm like somebody totally would have pitched this in the newsroom or somebody totally would have wanted to write an article about this. Like I would have wanted to write an
Mhm.
opinion piece on it or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we are gonna bring back our Bury the Lead
Yeah, we
segment
haven't done it in a
in this
while.
episode, where we're each gonna take 2.5 minutes to deliver our hottest takes at the end of the episode. So,
Okay, you
okay.
got it.
So my big lead, I'm gonna be talking about in America how, or the United States, Western culture in general, there's sort of this taboo around death. And I think this is very timely with the fall happening and transition into winter. It's very evident that, things around us are dying off, leaves are falling off the trees. It's literally something natural that happens, and death also is something that happens to all people. And so to not think about it ever seems like kind of a short-sighted thing in my opinion. I don't know why this is like culturally kind of the way that we approach death just by not really talking about it, not thinking about it, because I think it causes people to not be prepared or to not, take their mortality into consideration. I just listened to a podcast, actually, the Know Thyself podcast, and they had an episode with a death doula, which is like someone whose job it is to help people prepare for death and sometimes to be there with them when they die. And it got me thinking. I mean, I'm kind of a person who thinks about things like that anyway, but it did get me thinking about like ways to prepare and, you know, obviously having a will, but like communicating to people, what do you want? And not shying away from death, because I think when we shy away from it, we kind of rob ourselves of the preparation and the intentionality that we can bring to death. Um, and just in my own life, like the couple of experiences that I've had with people who I cared about who died, it made me more acutely aware of the fact that like I have life still and hope to for a while. And while I'm still here, knowing that death is inevitable, like I can actually, live my life to the fullest. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it really, it really is true. Like my worst experiences of people I know and love passing have really transformed my life. And I think there is a transformative power to death, knowing that whether or not we experience life after death in the same way that we experience conscious life now, that it's not an ending, like it's not like a firm beginning and end. It's more of like a transition where it's like a before and after where matter and energy, I think, can't really be created or destroyed. It just changes its form. And I do think that our lives are no different than any other matter.
I absolutely love that, and we will talk about this after. But I'm going to do my Bear the Lead on the importance of touching grass, but like in a hearing way as well. Like, I think living somewhere like in a walkable city, it's really easy to like go outside and like go places because a lot of people use public transit anyway, like people are out and about. But I want to further challenge people to go out for at least like 10 minutes a day and walk around without AirPods, without anything you're listening to, without fidgeting on your phone or anything like that, and try to hear things around. I would prefer it to be like in nature. I think it's really, really good for you and something that is very calming, and you wouldn't even people think that turning your brain off has to do with like rotting on your phone or social media or listening to music and going on a run maybe or like doing these things, but like true, like I guess Zen and meditation happens when you're listening to the nature around you. I think there's actual like research too about how listening to the sounds of nature, I think it's for at least 10 minutes a day. I'll have to double check that, has a lot of beneficial impact for your mental health as well. And an example of what I just did actually was I was having quite the week, and maybe this is a very big overcorrection. I ended up going to Shenandoah and listening to, I guess, the sounds of nature while I'm like hiking. And even then, like I was with people, but we weren't talking the whole time. And it was crazy how productive and clear my thought process was when I was doing it. Like I was thinking about things that I hadn't even like remembered before. And I think that there is such benefit in reconnecting with the energy around you as well. It kind of connects to your Bury the Lead, but more on like, I guess, like the life side of things and like remembering to be still, especially in a moving city. And I think that is something that I also have to constantly remind myself with as well, especially living here and especially with the work life here, and want to say to people in DC all the time that they just need to touch the grass, but also hear it.
Nice. I like
Um,
that a lot. I totally agree. Like when you're living in a city, it can be very easy to kind of exist in a bubble. And especially because there is like a lot of noise and stimulation, sometimes it's like easier to literally just put in your earbuds and like keep your like go about your day. Um, but you lose out on something, and I think you lose out. I've read a bit about like you lose out on interaction with other people because even having the earbuds in communicates to them like I'm closed off, like I'm
mhm.
not willing to hear what you might have to say to me or interact at all. And I
And
certainly,
sometimes you need that, which
yeah,
no judgment there.
and like I certainly do that. Like I'll go to the grocery store with my earbuds in, and I'm just like go in, go out, get groceries, done. But like it's nice to also open yourself up to what you might hear if you're willing to listen and to be somewhat inviting of people coming up to you and communicating something.
And I also think that's a downfall slash fault of Gen Z and like young people in general right now. And recently is that in these third space, even when you're in these third spaces, you're, like you said, presenting yourself as closed off because you're doing things like going to the grocery store with your AirPods on, or going on a walk with your AirPods on, or doing things on your phone that says to people, like, don't approach me, which, whether you like it or not, like, it's true. Like, I'm never gonna, like, try to talk to somebody if their AirPods are in. And sometimes like I said, like you need that like alone time. But there are a lot of people who say like third spaces are dead. Like you don't always like you don't go to the grocery store and like expect to like meet somebody or be asked out on a date or like whatever. And I've actually found that doing things like that where you go to the bar or the grocery store alone or like the I don't know, the library or something like that has made me realize that like when you don't have your earbuds on, like people actually do talk to you.
Mhm.
And that might sound like the stupidest thing to like anyone over the age of like, I don't know, I don't even know where I'd cut Gen Z off, but like, you know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
even millennials, like I think could relate to this as well. Like if I was telling my mom this, she'd probably be like, "Yeah, girl." Like she'd be like, "Yeah, no shit."
No, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Like it's the most obvious thing in the world to say, but it's like so true.
It's sort of like I think we all would like to like have those easy interactions that just are very natural and connect people over something random and simple but meaningful. But it's like you can't allow that experience to happen for yourself unless you like literally open up and communicate by your action and
And your
by,
body language too.
yeah, that you're open to those things.
And I will vouch, like I've met some people like in third spaces where I like never thought that I would get approached or anything like that, but it happens all the time to me. So,
I've read a lot about like the decline of third spaces and how the COVID pandemic really amplified, accelerated like the loss of like the town square, like City Hall or the movie theater, like it became less common for people to have those interactions, and we've sort of been struggling to, I think, like get back to normalcy in those easy connections facilitated by openness and expectation of it.
hmm be that person. Join me. And I'm not saying I have my earbuds in like basically 70% of the time, but challenge yourself to the other 30% of the time.
Lately, I've been like really trying to get myself to only have one at a time, like not never two, and it has made a difference. Like again, going to the grocery store, there's people outside who are like, I don't know, raising awareness for different things, and like they'll ask me like, "Oh, hey, do you have a moment to talk?" And I usually am like very politely like, "Oh, sorry, I gotta go, or I gotta do something else," and it's not like I'm not engaging them in that case, but at the same time I am in a way interacting with them, and that's better than just completely blowing them off, ignoring them, pretending like I can't hear, or actually not being able to hear.
Yeah, I agree with that. Going to your Bury the Lead, I really liked what you had to say about like energy and matter in all of us. Like I think that you're so right in that death is such a taboo thing to talk about. And when you were talking about how you're like more of a person who thinks about that thing, I totally see that things like that. I totally see that for you. Honestly, I see that for a lot of the friends that I have in that I think I think it's really important to look at something like loss and grieving and to push yourself to live like that fullest life.
I'm always like a bit baffled and probably envious when I meet someone our age who hasn't had any immediate encounters with death and dying. Because I think we still are at the age where there's a handful, a
hmm
solid percentage of people our age who've never had anyone they love or care about go through that. And I I envy them, but in another way I really don't, because I think it makes you more complacent and it makes you not see the full picture of what your life could be until maybe you know, you go through life and bad stuff happens to you eventually. But like for me, I guess I don't mind getting a little personal here. Like, so my mom had cancer when I was growing up, and that really brought to my awareness, like, she might not live. And we all at some point, like, have to face that. And just growing up in that setting, that environment where she was, like, struggling to keep living, yeah, it had a profound impact on me. And some of my other friends have had that happen where they also had a parent who got sick and same deal. Like I think those people are often very present when I engage with them because they know sort of the value of life and what's at stake.
Something else I think is important when it comes to death and not making it kind of a taboo thing is when people do pass, I think it's really important to let people talk about them and not get like, I guess, awkward or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like I think about people who have died and I maybe it's just the way I was raised too, in that like Filipinos are very much people who are like we need to like keep their memory alive. It's like very similar to like like we were just talking about like the Day of the Dead. Like we don't
Mhm.
have a Day of the Dead, but it's very much like spiritual in that like they're watching our ancestors are like watching over us and it's not a sad thing to talk about them. Like it's not a
Yeah.
sad thing to remember their life or like to talk about them consistently. I think have had like family members pass or, like people who have lost people and like things like that. And it's like, how sad would it be if people never felt comfortable to be able to talk about like a life that somebody they loved has lived, or like I think that's another issue with Americans and like that death is like I guess like taboo to talk about is when they hear that someone has passed in your life, people get very like clammy or like very uncomfortable with like asking them about it when honestly, for the most part, at least what I've heard and what I've experienced, I think it's what people want to do the most, to be able to talk about these stories and be able to talk about these things instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, like let's move on. Like let the people around you talk about the life of the people that have passed on and keep it alive. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, so I love the Day of the Dead celebration. And when we lived in San Diego, they used to do it at USD where we went to school. Like every single end of October, they'd like put up the altars for the Day of the Dead. And some of it would be kind of, well, it's very like a gregarious celebration of life wrapped up in the fact that like we're at the time of year where we're going into winter, which is very reminiscent of like death and dying. And so it's very symbolic of a tradition of a holiday. I really appreciate that, but it's also celebratory. And so one of my roommates was half Mexican, and he used to set up something for Day of the Dead too. And I like got in on it where I love ancestry, so I would like put up like my like Slovakian grandma picture, like a picture of her, and it'd be hilarious because like she probably never celebrated Day of the Dead, probably celebrated like All Souls Day or something, but like there she is on the Day of Dead altar, and I just loved that. Like that was
Like
so
that's
much
so
fun.
important.
Yeah, and
I
just
agree.
like you said, keeping people's memories alive. And to my last point here is just that I think part of the taboo around it is again, people want to avoid the reality that like this could happen to me. In fact, it will happen to me. And so not wanting to remember those who have died is sort of this defense against the harsh reality that like this is will also happen to me. But like you said, I think we all want to be remembered and respected and celebrated beyond our death, and so we should show other people that same respect if we want that for ourselves.
I agree with that. I think it's important to celebrate the legacy of those who came before you.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Walk
Shall
up
we go?
out.